Good evening, everyone. I hope you are well. My name is Dixon, Dr. Dixon Lai. I'm from District 330, Rotary Club of Auckland. I welcome you to our first mental health talk organized by District 3300 Action Group Mental Health Initiative. Now, this is a monthly event. Right? Basically, every third week of Thursday, right, we will have a mental health talk. Now, I just quickly share my screen. All right. So mental health is one of the key topics right now in the industry because of the pandemic we face and other environment situations. So Rotary District 3300 have come together and formed this mental health initiative. Right. So the entire mission of this particular initiative is to promote a mental health, right, through education, which is one of the events that we organize is our monthly event, the mental health talk that we are attending now. The vision is to support the community with a better understanding of mental health. Then we have our values throughout this period. Right. So I will quickly introduce who are the committee in the mental health initiative. First, I would like to introduce our chairman, CP Dr. Raj from Rotary Club of Klang Valley. We have our chairman too, President-elect Dr. Monish from Rotary Club of Greentown. Our secretary, past Assistant Governor Carnegie from Rotary Club of Subang. Our treasurer, Rotarian Shanti from Rotary Club of Klang Valley. We have our board of director advisor, which is our district governor-elect, Dr. Bindi Rajesh Sigaram from Rotary Club of Greentown, Ipoh. And past district governor, Dr. Jimmy Lim from Rotary Club of KL Diraja. Past district governor, Leslie Salahuddin from Rotary Club of Gombak. And past district governor, Siti Zubaida from Rotary Club of Central Damansara. Past district governor, Dr. Manohar from Rotary Club of Klang Valley, and our ex-officio district governor secretary, Moti from Rotary Club of Greentown. And together with our committee, the Rotarians have come together to form this mental health initiative. To start off, I would like to introduce our advisor. She has been very passionate about this mental health initiative, and she's working very hard to form this entire initiative. And nobody rather than our district governor-elect, Datuk Bindi Raja Singkaram. Right, Datuk Bindi is a member of Rotary Club of Greentown, Ipoh. She's a managing director and administrator of Raja Singkaran Consultants, a leading industry relation and human resource management advisory practice. So let's hear from her, right, what is mental health initiatives all about and how this will impact the community and the society at this moment. Let's welcome Datuk Bindi. Now, before we welcome Datuk Bindi, I would like to ask a question, and I see whether all of you are attentive to this particular mental health talk. Let's pose the first question to the ground.
Go away. Hey, take her away.
Can we have the first pose? Now, the first question is, what is your reason to be here tonight? All right. So at this moment, you should be able to see on your screen, there's a polling question. Click on the polling question. At least we get to know, right, the amount of participate in this particular mental health talk. Now, your poll, right, will give us more enthusiasm to pass on more mental health knowledge to you. Right. Great. Thank you very much. And now let us welcome our mental health initiative advisor, Datuk Bindi.
Thank you very much, Dr. Dixon, for moderating this session today. A very good evening and a warm welcome to all. Thank you for your support in tuning in. Now let's talk about mental health. Stress, anxiety, depression affects all of us in certain stages of our lives. None of us are spared. It's a matter of being aware how to cope with it and know that there are solutions out there. Realizing that mental health agenda is a very complex one and the devastating statistics amongst the youth, we decided to take this challenge on. The Rotarians have initiated the National Coalition for Mental Well-Being. It's a platform created for all stakeholders and specialists in this field to bring together all our resources and expertise to develop a consistent mental well-being governance in Malaysia. Currently, we have close to 30 associations, organizations, and NGOs, and many more in their individual capacity. We also have the WHO, UNICEF, and various ministries in an advisory role. And very recently, we have been extremely honored to have the royal patronage of Young Amat Mulia Tengku Puteri Raja Tengku Puteri Iman Afsan Al Sultan Abdullah. Our young princess is very passionate about this agenda, and her involvement will greatly inspire and motivate all of us. The stakeholders have all come together voluntarily, and we have been overwhelmed by their sincere passion of our common goal to educate, empower, and support families and communities to better understand and care for the mental health of our youths and communities. We envision a nation made up of informed families and caring communities that realize the need to strengthen the mental health of our youth, a nation where people are just as aware of their mental health as their physical health, where families are able to readily access the care that they need. Now, mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. A healthy mind is as important to a child's development as a healthy body. In order to address the devastating consequences of the current mental health crisis, early intervention and prevention must become the norm. Our areas of focus currently identified are youth and adolescent, especially in secondary schools, colleges, and universities, mental health in the workplace, campaigns to address the issues of stigma and discrimination, decriminalization of suicides, striving for zero in the elimination of suicides, training of uniformed frontliners, as they are often subjected to high stress situations and they are the first ones on hand during a crisis, parent support groups, women's mental health, and much, much more. The plans are intensive and targets the entire strata of society, and addressing all this will require leadership, commitment, and honest conversations. We are targeting to roll our plans out sometime in the first quarter of next year. Do join us every third Thursday, and we will keep you captivated with different topics and amazing speakers. Do follow us on Facebook to keep up with the latest developments. Wishing everyone season's greetings, a very happy new year, and good health. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Bindi, for addressing and opening for this first mental health talk. So amazing, we have almost achieved 100 participants coming into this mental health talk, and our Facebook is live at this moment. So in this mental health talk, we have Rotarians and also non-Rotarians. Right? So because of the overwhelm of participants coming in, along the way, when you listen to the first speaker, if you have any question, please type in your question into the chat box. The team behind, right? Well, later during the Q&A, we will pass it on to the speaker. All right. Now, let's see whether you are still attentive throughout this session. I'm going to pose you the second question. See whether you are intelligent or attentive enough to answer this question. Can we have the second poll? All right. That is the first one. Right. So, can we have the second poll?
This one?
Yes. The second poll is the emotions. What emotions are you feeling for the last 2 weeks? This is very related to mental health. Emotion does shape us. So while you're clicking on the post, you do not know which one to choose. I will give you another 30 seconds. During these 30 seconds, let me briefly introduce our speaker for tonight, Dr. Indigo. Now, Dr. Indigo has worked in the psychology industry since 1995, which is 25 years, 2.5 decades ago. However, it was after a woman attempted suicide and secured her services that she knew that she was called to step into the space of mental healing. She taught psychology 405 at DeVry University and speaks on the international stage on various mental wellness topics such as resilience, PTSD, forgiveness, and letting go, and more. Tonight, her topic will be My Wellness, Resilient to Move from Surviving to Thriving. So I've been seeing a lot of polling coming in. To welcome Dr. Indigo, go to your chat box and type 555. The more 555 that I had on the chat box, Dr. Indigo will surface. Let's see how many 555s is on the chat box. Right now, 555 means give me a high five, and 555 in Thai word means ha ha ha. So let's welcome Dr. Indigo. Dr. Indigo, pass on to you.
Thank you so much. I am so excited about being here. Some of you have heard me speak before, so I'm going to have to put on my game face and really bring it to you because you've heard it. So I got to make sure I bring you something new and exciting. And for those of you who have never heard me speak before, I am here so that we can have a dialogue, that you can leave understanding mental health a little more and being able to just have a great time this evening. It's not about being serious. It's not about, dragging everybody through the mud, but rather, how does this impact you? And how you can spend an evening with me, some of my Rotarian friends, relaxing and learning more about yourself so that you can have self-care as well as help others. Let me minimize, and if I can get because I'm hearing a lot of background on my end, we can get started. So tonight is about building your resilience, finding meaning in adversity. And let's face it, there's been a lot of adversity. Some of it for things that's beyond our control, and some things we might have also brought on ourselves. We are doing what's called Third Thursday Talks on mental health. And like he said, it's going to be monthly. So this is our inaugural launch of what I think is going to be a fantastic series. And tonight it's all about mind wellness, resilience to move from surviving to thriving. Okay, now that's bizarre. Why is it give me a second. Things are not going right over here. Unfortunately, when I touch things, because so much is happening, let me try this again. Okay, can everyone see this? Okay. So let me tell you a little bit about myself. He mentioned to you that I've been working in the space of mental health since 1995. There's three distinct areas that I work in. One is mind wellness, transformational coaching, and growth capacity. I'm a success and wellness practitioner. Now, when we talk about success, I help companies become profitable, have growth capacity. And then I help individuals with transformational coaching, but it's all grounded in mind wellness. What is it to have all the success in the world, but you are depressed, you're lonely, you're all these different things that are a part of mental health. And some of the clients that I've worked with that you may notice or recognize is NASA, the Pentagon, International Department of State, and so forth. Even Bursa, Malaysia, which is right here. And so when we talk about mental health, we are now starting to see more people talk about it and deal with it. You know, I worked with CNN, Time Warner, and because mental health was not discussed, they would not really publicly talk about the work that I would do with them. Because at one point it was such a stigma. But now we're finding that people and companies realize the importance of mental health. So I'm able to really step out and do what I consider my life passion, my life purpose, rather. So I said step out. Let me just say, since the pandemic, I've been able to step into what I call the flow. So prior to the global shutdown, I was an award-winning business owner. You see me with this picture here of Inc. 500. I've made it to the Inc. 500 list twice as being one of the top fastest, 500 top fastest growing companies in America. And I would say that was like a pinnacle of success. Now, since the pandemic, I've been serving in the Rotary International District 3300 Action Group on Mental Health Initiative, which is the driver of this third Thursday Talks on mental health. I've also been more of a healer. I've been doing coaching and things like that, helping people deal with what's going on with the coronavirus and with the pandemic and the global shutdown. Just recently, I did a talk with BASF in Germany because they were dealing with sexual harassment as well as bullying. And when they come to me, I said, that's a mental health. And they're like, really? And I was like, yes, bullying is not a physical thing. It becomes physical after it has entered the mind. So that's a mental health situation. And then I've appeared on 89.9 FM, Light FM in Kuala Lumpur, an EI podcast out of Singapore, the Voice of America last month in the US. And those are the things that I love doing. As I told someone, all the other stuff that I do pays for the lights to stay on, while mental health is my life purpose and passion. And I totally love it. As we go through my session, I love to be able to take questions and things like that, but I won't see them. All I see really is a dark screen. So if there is a question, one of my teammates can pick it up, they can interrupt me, and I will deal with your question right there and then. Sometimes it's so important for me to talk about whatever is going on with that topic on that slide versus waiting until the end. So if you have a question, go ahead and pose it, and I will answer them as we go along. So let's talk about mental health. According to the World Health Organization, mental health was scheduled to be the next pandemic. And I read this over like 2 years ago. It was scheduled to be the next pandemic, and everyone started talking about it and getting ready for it. But then Corona cut cue. It decided to tap mental health on the shoulder and say, hello, I'm here. But the USA Today has said that mental illness is an epidemic within the coronavirus pandemic. So that means we will have more people than what we anticipated to be dealing with mental health issues and challenges. And here's the thing, you all, there is no vaccine for mental illness. As a matter of fact, I was talking to someone and I said to them, what a lot of people don't understand is that you can't draw blood or take a swab and figure out if someone has a mental health disorder. There's a process that's done to figure out what's going on with someone, but there's no actual test. So very often people don't know that they actually have a mental health disorder or that they're challenging in such a way that they need help. So tonight, I want to talk to you all about preventive care. Now, preventive care does not mean that you will not have struggles. It does not mean you will be well all the time. What it means, there are things you can do to offset it. There's things you can do so that you don't feel the heaviness of mental health challenges or the storms that are brewing around us. And resilience has proven to be one of the prime indicator of well-being while it creates mental health. So I just want to ask you, and I can't see this, but if you want to put it in there, when was your last checkup? See, some of you have gotten your car, you gave it a checkup. You gave your teeth a checkup. You even gone and did a physical checkup as a woman. You might have gotten your pap smear. As a guy, you may have gotten, the test for you all. So many of us keep getting checkups. But when was the last mental health checkup? And I can wait because I don't think many of you have gotten a mental health checkup. And a little bit later, I will talk about how can you do a mental health checkup. So before we even go any further, let me do some level setting, because I hear people all the time say, you're mental. What does that mean? Or they'll say, you have a mental health. Everybody has a mental health. Mental health is very much like physical health. There is no mental health, but no physical health, or physical health and no mental health. As a matter of fact, if I can be honest with you, there is mental health, physical health, and spiritual health. It's a mind, body, spirit connection. But for today, I'm just going to focus on mental health, because some people have gone into this belief that only people who have issues have mental health. Well, everyone has mental health. Why is this polling still showing up? Well, since we're here, since somebody put this up here, 43% of you said in the last 2 weeks, you have had happiness. No one said they've been angry. 5% have said they've been sad. 22% said anxious. 22% said all, which means some 22% also had some anger in there. And then 8% said none. Now, some of you may be saying, wow, how could someone have none? And we'll talk about that. So let me see if I can make this leave. Okay, so let's talk about this. So we have mental illness, which is red, which is 1. Then you have wellness, which is green, which, by the way, I'm wearing green, and many of my team members are wearing green, because green is the color of mental health. It is the color that's been designated internationally to denote mental health, because if you look at this picture, supposedly the nature helps induce better mental health. So if you are having a bad day, it is recommended that you go outside because it helps you feel better. So we have red, which is illness, green, which is wellness. Now, if we look at illness, that's 1 to 2. That means disease. That's usually things like actual diagnoses that are active, such as bipolar disorder, schizophrenia. There are so many anxiety, depression. There are so many different actual diagnoses that could indicate illness. Then you have 3 to 8, where you're moving along the spectrum, but 5 to 6 is neutral. Remember that small pocket of people, I think it was 8% that said none? That may mean neutral. That may mean you didn't have anger, you didn't have happiness, you were neutral. And we'll come back and I'll talk about that as well. And then when we look at wellness, wellness is when you are mentally fit. It doesn't necessarily mean happy, but it does mean peace, tranquility, being grounded, being balanced, right? Now, let me give you a real world example of how we can move along the spectrum. Now, here's the thing. Right now, you could easily be well, but you can also be neutral. A certain phone call can change it all. I'll give you an example. About a month before we went into our shutdown, I was asleep, got up, went to the restroom, my normal evening. I don't normally check my phone in the evening. Everyone in my family knows that, because what am I going to do in the middle of the night? So I don't usually look at my phone. But this night, for something in my spirit said, check your phone. And I did. And when I looked at the phone, it said, I can't explain this. Please call my girlfriend. I'm in jail. This is coming from my middle son, my heart and soul, someone I love dearly. And those of you who are mothers, you can only imagine if you pick up in the middle of the night a call or a WhatsApp that says, can't talk to you, I've been arrested. Now, up until that point, I was well. I was 10. Everything was fine. But I moved down the spectrum to about a 5 or a 6. Now, some of you may say a 5 or a 6. Yes, a 5 or a 6, because I didn't have enough information to be angry, to be happy, to be sad, to be depressed. I didn't have enough information. So I'm like concerned, what's going on? And so I'm more neutral. Now, here's what's interesting to understand about neutral. Actually, I'll come back to that because it's good stuff, guys. So let me keep going down the spectrum. I'm neutral, trying to figure out what's going on. I let things go to try to figure out who do I need to call and so forth. By the time I got in touch with the people I needed to, I was told that my son was in a Malaysian jail on drug charges, as well as being arrested for immigration violation. They thought he was a foreigner from another country than the US. He was actually arrested under a different identity, they thought. So I was on 4 or 5. Do you think I stayed there very long? No, I slid right into 3. Then I started having to deal with this. So when we started really finding out this is serious, people started telling me he could get life. He can get 10 years. And we're talking about a highly educated, well-raised man, young man, who is in a foreign prison or jail. I can't speak to him. They won't speak to me. And so I'm nervous. Now, mind you, I practice a lot of well-being, breathing techniques. I was doing all the breathing. I was eating well. I was getting my rest. I was doing all the things I'm supposed to do. But guess what? I made a phone to a very special friend who's a psychiatrist, who you all will actually meet next month. And I went to go meet with him, and he gave me something to help me sleep, because I was now in the disease area. I was not well. I was not feeling well. I was anxious. I was fearful. I was angry. I was a lot of different things. Now, speed forward. Several weeks later, almost a month later, he goes to court and his blood test came back as negative. He had no drugs in his system. The US Embassy, as well as a Rotarian friend, helped us out with the immigration issue. And so now Where do you think I am? I slid right back to well because it's over. So what I want you all to understand is that when we're talking about mental health continuum, we move along that spectrum, not on a monthly basis, not a weekly, not a daily, but it can be hourly, that you can get a phone call tonight that can move you right over to illness. And that's where I think we have to understand that people are human. And when they're human, they will have these emotions. So if I can get the next question, the next poll, where are you on the scale? Can we get that or no? Oh, okay. So it says, over the last few weeks, your overall mental health has been roughly 1 to 2, ill, meaning you have had pressure, anxiety, you're not sleeping, you're not feeling well. 3 to 4, you're unwell, meaning things are going on that have you anxious, fearful, and so forth. Neutral, nothing, you're not feeling anything. 7 to 8, good, you're in a good space. 9 to 10 is well. Okay, let me read these real fast. Let me process this. So no one has been ill. Wonderful. 11% have been unwell. 13% is in the neutral zone. 51% was good. We're still moving this. What's in the poll? And then 26% is well. Excellent. Now let's talk about neutral, you all. Neutral does not mean that, you're even keel. Here's what you need to understand about being in the neutral zone. Neutral means you don't have any emotions one way or the other. You're indifferent even. And if you have a neutral stance for too long, you may want to have that even checked out. For instance, all emotions are good. If you're angry, if you're sad, if you have fear, fear protects us in some instances. So we need all of these emotions. It's when they stay with us far too long that can create problems. For instance, if I would have stayed in the state of needing medication to sleep, then something's wrong and I may need to see or seek help, right? So if you're neutral for the reason because something so much has happened that you have short-circuited, it could mean that you're just done. But neutral could also mean that many of us throughout the day, we're actually in neutral, you all. For instance, we do not wake up usually angry or happy. We usually wake up neutral. And it's things that occur through the day causes us to become a little more happier or a little sadder. So we move through this continuum is what I'm trying to emphasize, okay? Why does it do that? Something about when we put up the slides, it blocks my show. No. Bear with me. Okay. Okay. So I just talked about how we move along the spectrum, right? But here's something I want you to understand is life storms. I shared with you a life storm, a very personal life storm that I haven't even been public about. You all brought it out of me. When I saw who was coming, I even put perfume on. I don't know if you all can tell or not. But we have life storms, and the pandemic is a storm. If you lost your job or you're on the bubble about your job, that can be a storm. Getting a divorce can be a storm. When people ask me, how did I come to be in Malaysia? I will share with them, I had a perfect storm that came in my life, and it blew me, pushed me out of America and brought me into Asia. So we all deal with life storms differently. And that's why we need resilience, personally and professionally. Some of us are personally resilient, while professionally we may crumble. So let's talk about what is a storm. Is a particularly violent storm arising out of rare combinations of adverse meteorological factors. So that's a perfect storm. We, all of us, we're actually in a perfect storm. You know, when you really look at what's going on, most of what is happening is unheard of. You know, a global pandemic, a global shutdown, you know, all the pushback we're getting in government, just a lot of things are happening that's creating a perfect storm for us collectively. And now when you layer that on top of personal storms and then professional storms, that's the perfect storm. And so a perfect storm is a especially bad situation caused by a combination of unfavorable circumstances. So it is so important that you understand your mental well-being and work on building up your resiliency to deal with these perfect storms. So this is something I've been sharing with people for years, weathering life storms. There are 3 times a storm will appear in your life. You're either going into a storm, in a storm, or coming out of the storm. Now, here's what's interesting, you all, and I want you to write this down, or you can put it in the chat so that you all, I don't know if you can see chats or not, but so that other people can see, but I definitely want you to write this down for yourself. Right now, are you going into a storm personally? Are you in a storm personally? Or are you coming out of a storm? I submit to you that, say, I'm coming out of a storm. And the thing about coming out of a storm is that it feels good. You're in a good space. You know, everything is working well for me. Everything has lined up. I mean, I'm in a good space, mentally, physically, and spiritually. But that's the whole thing about life. We don't know what storms are blowing in. So some of us have learned to weather 2020 and its storms. For instance, I was just saying the other day, I love 2020. I have become accustomed to the chaos. I have come to understand it and I can dance with it, right? So with that, I had to stop myself and say, but wait a minute. I have to let go of 2020 to embrace 2021 because I don't know what to expect. But that's the whole thing about resilience, is being able to move forward despite where you are with the storm. So when we talk about resilience, how many of you, and you can put it in the chat, how many of you recognize this picture? This is I call him the Honorable Muhammad Ali. He very rarely was on the floor, on the mat. You would usually see pictures of him looking over his opponent. So it doesn't matter how many times you get knocked down, but how many times you get back up, which is so important to understand about resilience. Resilience does not mean you will not have a storm. Oh, contraire, you will have a storm if you live long enough. It's about being able to get back up. Like for me, it was such a fluke for my son to be arrested. He was literally in a part of Malaysia that's far away, working on a farm, volunteering, helping in farming and helping youth development. There was no reason or way he was supposed to be in jail, but things happen beyond our control, right? So resilience is about being able to deal with things that we may not even plan for. Resilience is the process of adapting well in the face of adversity, trauma, tragedy, threats, significant sources of stress, such as family relationships and so forth. It means bouncing back from difficult experiences. So I don't believe I could have dealt with what happened with my son if I wasn't resilient. Now, some say, but you took medication to help you sleep. I'm human. And that's where we need to understand that when you are going through things, there are certain things you need to do that's a part of resilience. One, seek help. Two, reach out to others. Three, breathe, meditate, pray. There are so many things that you need to do, and I'm going to share some things outside of these that I talked about. Even getting your rest. What I recognize is that I wasn't sleeping. And if you want to be at your healthy best, you must get your rest. So while this definition is useful, it does not reflect the complex nature of resilience. There are so many things that play into resilience, such as culturally. You know, I find that depending on your religious beliefs, practices, sometimes it makes it even harder for you to deal with mental health and be resilient. It also goes to your psychological outlook. Biologically, today I was just on a conference call out of Africa, and a woman was saying, you know, no one ever talks about mental health and leadership when I was talking about it. And she said, when I started going through menopause, I thought I was going crazy. For those who understand what I'm talking about, you women, and some of you guys who are married to women who have gone through menopause, we don't talk about that. Culturally, a lot of people do not talk about menopause, but biologically, it changes everything about a woman, including her emotions. And so when we start talking about resilience, you got to put all these things into practice and into understanding so that you don't beat yourself up about moving along that spectrum. You don't poke and ridicule or judge people in your life who are moving along that spectrum. So here's something that I want to share with you all because one, I find it very useful. It was actually out of my book, my second book called Playing by the Unwritten Rules 2, from a job defense to a career offense. And I wrote a whole chapter about cars. And what's interesting is that when we started going through this, I realized this is relevant for mental health as well. So cars is about 4 people or groups that you need in your life to help you weather the storm. If you look at the analogy of a race car, now a race car has all these different cars on the track, I don't know how to call it. You have all these cars on the track that's going around in circles. That's life. We're going around in circles. Some of us are going fast, some of us are going slow, some of us crash. It's the race of life. But as the race car, you need people on your team, and that's called a pit crew. And on the pit crew, you have 4 people that take care of your tires. You don't have, one person running out taking care of 4 tires when the car comes in to get serviced so that it's at its optimal best. See, some of us don't have enough people on our team when we're going through our storm. So what I want to talk to you about is making sure you have the right people on your team so that you can be resilient. So the first one is colleagues. We spend more time with colleagues than anyone else. Colleagues are people who can be there to help you in your career, to watch how things are going, to give you advice, to share with you, information. Then we have advocates. Advocates are people who open doors for us, who look out for opportunities for us. They help us along. Right now, for those of you who know, I'm actually looking I want to join a nonprofit to be a part of the change that the world is going through. And I have advocates, people who, will look at my resume. I have people who will send out my resume. I have people really watching out for me. And so those are advocates. Then I have resources. Resources are people who give you what you need. For instance, an advocate put me in touch with a headhunter. Now, the headhunter is not my advocate. The headhunter is my resource. They put me in touch with potential employers. So when we talk about life storms, a resource could be someone who can watch your children for you. A resource can be someone that has people in high places that can introduce you to, say, somebody who works for the government that can help you with your bills. I don't know. But a resource is someone who gives you tools and things that will help you while you're in the journey of life. Let's put it like this. A resource will pull out that umbrella when you don't have your own, or cover you up like in this picture. That's a resource. A supporter can do some of the same thing. Now, a supporter may not necessarily be a resource. They may not have something to give you other than their love, attention, and time. So when you're going through something, you need people who support you, who love you despite yourself. Even when you snatch their head off, they still care about you and will help you. That's a supporter. So when we are talking about compartmentalizing, what I'm talking about here is that far too often we make some people our everything. Meaning, a colleague, you tell them all the problems about what's happening at work. Or the advocate, you tell them how much you hate being on a committee. Well, here's the thing. If you tell an advocate how you hate being on a committee, how likely are they to recommend you for a different committee? They may not. They have to trust that you're going to show up and represent them well. So you should save all your gripes and grumbles for your supporters. Supporters are the people who will let you cry on their shoulders. So I want you to understand this, and I can't spend a lot of time on it because I got to keep going, but at the end, I got a surprise for you. So keep thinking about that book, because that talks more about colleagues, advocates, resources, and supporters. Now, before I leave, when you are going through things, just keep in mind, if I think of my Rotary members are my colleagues. I don't work with them professionally. I serve with them. So they're colleagues. When my son got into trouble, they were able to share, some were able to share with me potential resources. And then even my attorney, I actually had to have 3, but the last attorney was a resource that represented my son. There were people who advocated. I have a Rotarian who actually knows a Rotarian that lived in this remote area that actually went to jail to look in on my son, to look in for his well-being. That's an advocate. They spoke with the police on my behalf because I couldn't speak the language. So you see how when you're in a storm, you need to make sure you have the right people. And then supporters. This is where you'll learn who's a supporter and who's not. Some people can be great resources, but terrible supporters. Someone who said to me, he may get life. That was not the support I needed. But that doesn't change them from being maybe a good resource. It just doesn't make them a good supporter for me. So I think sometimes we confuse these roles and end up losing friends and losing colleagues, getting out of clubs and organizations, and even leaving our church and things like that, because we try to make some people our everything when we're in a storm. So let me share 4 things now that I believe are very relevant and a little bit different than what you may hear. Some of you hear things like eat right, sleep, and things like that, and those are all true. But let's face it, Eating right or eating is a normal life thing. You're supposed to eat, even if you're not in a storm. Breathing, you're supposed to breathe, even if you're not in a storm. Resiliency is doing those things that you don't normally do. See, resiliency is like the umbrella when you're in a storm or in a rain shower. It doesn't mean the rain shower goes away, and it doesn't mean the storm isn't there. It just means you don't get wet in the process. Okay? So the first thing I want to share is journaling. And I have here an actual journal that I created a little over a year ago because I love journaling so much that I wanted people to have a journal. And so in the journal, it actually talks about day, time, feeling, and date. And I put a quote on each page. So why is journaling important? Journaling captures how you feel. It captures what you're doing. I submit to you, take a moment and write down, what were you doing this time last year? What were you doing? What about what were you doing this time last year at this very time? Most of us, it's such a blur. This time last year, I was on my way to India, but it was a time frame, and I only remember it because I wanted to go to an ashram for my Christmas holiday. But if nothing big happened during the holidays, I may not remember it. Journaling is so important, you all, that in America, if you keep a journal, it can actually be subpoenaed for a court trial because they realize that you will speak truth in your journal more so than you will to your attorney, to your boss, to your children, to your husband, or even to yourself. Sometimes we will sit there and say, it doesn't bother me. And that may not be the truth. But when you're sitting with pen and pad, you will start writing about how you really feel about things. So journaling is very powerful to capture how you're feeling, to capture what you're doing. And then you can go back and review it to really, one, it lets you, what I call purge, but it also lets you go back and see what's happening. Many years ago when I was married, I used to, my son didn't live with us. And when he would come to visit, I would be so excited, right? And so I started journaling everything. And I started noticing in my journal, it said, today, my son came by. It was wonderful seeing him. I'm also sleeping in the guest room. Dave makes me sick. That's my husband. Dave makes me sick. And so I started seeing this consistently whenever my son came over. And then I was able to connect the dots. When my son came over, he would ask things of me that would upset my husband. And for those of you who don't know what husband, and that was husband. So he would be upset about things. And my son basically was pitting us against each other. He's a great guy. Don't get me wrong, but come on. We all have children that will ask one parent one thing, the parent another, and so forth. So journaling allowed me to see what was going on. And now that we are in lockdown or, restrictive movement, I spend a lot of time journaling about my life, about what it's like to be in Malaysia, what it's like to live through what's going on. Because at some point, someone in the future is going to wonder, what was it like during that time? So journaling is very powerful. The next thing is to meditate. I believe that you should have prayer, and if you don't do prayer, do meditation. Now, some people believe meditation and prayer is the same, but for me, meditation is, well, let me just say this, prayer is me speaking to God, while meditation is me allowing God to speak to me, because we both can't talk at the same time. So I will be quiet and just meditate so that I can allow God to speak to me. And then visualize. Another way to become more resilient is to visualize what you want. See, what happens very often, you all, is that we tend to think about what will go wrong versus what will go right. Would you agree? So sometimes, I'll give you an example. If somebody is throwing a birthday party, which is a great event, right? You may start thinking about all the guests who are not going to come versus those who will come. You will sit down and think, oh, I'm going to have this and I'm going to have that. And then you'll say, but the cake probably won't be ready. So for some reason, naturally, many of us will see things in terms of half full. Is the glass half full or is it half empty? And so this is what I want to say. When we talk about visualizing, start seeing things as you want them to be. That helps with resiliency. There has been a lot of work done and conducted around the power of visualization. The next thing is gratitude. I cannot say enough how powerful gratitude is. Gratitude helps you put things in perspective. So for those of you who may feel like some things are not going well in your life, this is what I want you to do. And this is something that I recommend to when I do coaching, sometimes the actual exercise will be, we stop talking. I want you to write down the top 10 things you're grateful for. Now, this is what I want you to do right now. Write down 3 things you're grateful for. Just 3 things. You can write them in the chat box or you can write it to yourself, but I want you to write 3 things that you are grateful for. Now, with that, when you start obsessing or when you start feeling overwhelmed, anxious, angry, fearful, I do this technique that's like counting sheep. You know, they say counting sheep helps you put you to sleep, even though there's been no real scientific evidence. But this is what some people theorize, is that what it does, it allows you to have a cadence so that it calms you and then you drift off to sleep. So if you are ever anxious and so forth, I want you to do the top, do your gratitude. I say 10 and then you repeat. So if you do it right now, you would say, my health, my children, my home. Try that when you are going through something or feeling anxious about something. Write down top 10 things you're grateful for and then say them aloud as if you're counting sheep. And just keep doing it. And I promise you, it will calm you and help you build resilience. Positive psychology. Can I get somebody to mute everyone because I'm hearing someone talking? Positive psychology.
They will bring a cup. We put everyone cup and they cup. Everyone take a cup and they can eat 2 cups.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so positive psychology. Love this, you guys. Positive psychology is actually rather new. It used to be a time people only looked at the negative parts of psychology, like function and things like that. Positive psychology is where you look at what is right about something. For instance, if we look at what's going on right now, we could say we're shut off from each other. We have to wear masks. You know, there's a lot of negative things that's happening right now as a part of the pandemic. But look at the positive. Some of us get to spend time with our family in a way we've never been able to spend it. Some of us are healthier because we're home cooking and we're eating healthy food now. Some of us are learning, getting degrees and finishing school or enrolling in classes, learning. So the positive can actually outweigh some of the negative. So it's incredible. So the next thing is radical authenticity. Radical authenticity, if you look at this picture, it's a picture of a sand castle. And we all seen sand castles. But the sand castle is basically saying, I want to be a sand castle for real. I want to be a real sand castle. And that's radical authenticity. If you want to be more resilient, you have to become more of who you are. See, some of us are being what other people would have us to be, not speaking our truth, not stepping up, saying what really works for us. I remember when I turned 50, many moons ago, I said, I'm going to do more of what I want and less of what I don't. And trust me, some people didn't like it. See, some people want you to do what they want, even if it goes against who you want to be or what you want to do. So radical authenticity is speaking your truth, being who you say you are. And this is something I want you to try that I have seen to be an incredible game changer. So many years ago, I stopped doing New Year's resolutions. I don't believe in New Year's resolutions. New Year resolutions are basically a wish list. A New Year's resolution is, I want to lose weight, or I will lose weight. That's a wish. Instead, I come up with an actual vision statement of what will drive my behavior for the year. So one year it was to live my truth with courage. And the way I would do it to make sure I did what I said I would do, I used to put it at the end of all my emails, living my truth with courage. And so one day I wrote this long email, and when I was proofreading it, and I got to the end where it said, living my truth with courage, I realized I wasn't doing that in the letter. I was actually doing just the opposite, where that was causing stress. So if I'm going to become more resilient, I have to stick to who I say I am or who I want to be. So I deleted all that and I rewrote the letter. So with that being said, give thought to what you want to be, who you want to be, how you want to show up in this world in 2021. That's how you become more resilient. And there's words like courageous, peaceful, more silent, speak up more. There's so many, and I wish I can see, because I would ask you to put it in the chat, but maybe we can talk about it when we have our question, our Q&A. So the next one is listen to your inner voice. Here's a way to become more resilient. Your inner voice, you all, is spirit. Now, some of you are saying, oh, here she goes with the religious stuff again. No, spirit is not about religion. It's about the seat of our gut instinct. It's that thing that is not physical. It's that thing that speaks to us. Think about it like this. When you're driving and you're not sure which way to turn, spirit, gut instinct, will say, turn left. But you have an ego, will say, I'm gonna go right. And then a half an hour later, you will hear a voice that will say, what? I told you so. And that is spirit. Learn to listen to your inner voice, your gut instinct. Guys love you madly, but women, we have intuition that is profound. But many of us have been told so many times that if it's not backed up with facts, or if you don't have proof, we don't want to hear it. And so we've allowed that inner voice become more and more smaller and quiet. But I submit to you, learn to listen to your inner voice. Listen, allow it to guide you. And that's how you become more resilient. There are so many things that I do that I can do on an intellectual level, but then when it comes to resilience, I'll allow inner voice to kick in. For instance, we're doing questions. I'm not comfortable with pollings because, you know, as you can see, my slides even jam up. So I was afraid that if we do polling, it may not go well. But there was someone on our team that really likes polling and really wanted to try it to make this the best experience. So with that, gut instinct was, why are you afraid? And then I had to go back and say, well, I'm afraid because I don't want to look bad. Why don't you want to look bad? Why do you care? If you give your best, you don't have to worry about it. That's my conversation with gut instinct. I listened to gut instinct. We did the questions. It turned out well. So that is how we build more resilience, because resilience is like a muscle. for those of you who don't understand how the muscle works, the way the muscles work is that when you work out, right, or lift weights, you get scar tissue. And there's an actual technical term that I actually wrote about. There's an actual technical term that talks about how you build it. And when you start lifting more weights, that scar tissue, which now started healing, will get more scar tissue. And it heals, gets more scar tissue. Resilience is the same way. When you encounter something that's traumatic or hard and you get through it, you build muscle, resiliency. Then when you go through it again, you build more muscle. So that's why some people are more resilient than others, because they went through something and they went through it. If you do not go through some things, you won't be resilient, you'll be resistant. And resistance is not the same in terms of having your best life and stepping into your greatness or living your best life. You must be resilient. I only have one more slide, and unfortunately, something about maybe being the host causes my slide to jam. I don't know. I can't call it, but let me try to go back. Give me just a second, guys. Okay, my last slide. While we're going through the storm, you all, don't focus so much on the storm that you miss your rainbow. There is a rainbow. Some of us are in it right now and we're able to see the rainbow. Some of you, it's coming, trust me. And here's my favorite quote to end with. And once the storm is over, you won't remember how you made it through, how you managed to survive. You won't even be sure whether the storm is really over. But one thing is certain, when you come out of the storm, you won't be the same person who walked in. That's what this storm is all about, by Haruki Murakami. So that concludes my presentation on resilience. Now our moderator is going to open it up. I want to share with you before I go, or before we start the questions, I have 3 books that if you get in touch with me, I will send to you complimentary, meaning all you'll have to do is pay for shipping, what is it called? Shipping and handling. But for being a part of this, you can either ask for this book, which talks about cars, this book, which is called Playing by the Unwritten Rules. Here's what I think. This is what I know. This is where I talk about my storms that pushed me out of America and about forgiveness and letting go, as well as resilience. I think this is one of my best books, but it all depends on what you need. Or the journal. Those books you can buy online. This one you cannot. So if you want this, I can send this to you. So as a gift for being a part of this inaugural launch of Third Thursday Talks, I will send you the book of your choice. Just email me. There's my email address, indigo@4-dperformance.com, or go to my website and let's connect at www.drindigo.com. That's where you'll see the types of products and services I offer. And you can let me know what book you want, and we can set it up so that you can go ahead and get your book before the new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Indigo. So, Dr. Indigo, does the moderator have a chance to get your book?
Yes.
So, no harm asking.
Yes.
So, it was a great session that we have. So, participants, while you're listening, would like to give some feedback to Dr. Indigo. So, if I unmute everyone, it's going to be very noisy. So what I'm going to do is, if you If you like Dr. Indigo talks, just type 111. 111 means good over the chat box. Just type 111. The more 111 you have, the more books that she will start to issue out. Thank you for your participation. Before we open up for Q&A, right, I would like to play another interesting game, which to have a group photograph together over the Zoom. Now we have almost 110 audience in this webinar. So my team is getting ready to take a group photograph. So what I want you to do is, first, if you're okay, just on your videos so that we can see you while taking the photograph. Second, put on a smile, the most beautiful mental health smile you have ever thought of. And the third, thumbs up. Okay, so that will last for about 10 seconds. Now, team, are you ready? Please, on your video, put on your smile and thumbs up. 10, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Ching chang. I think they captured the video, the photos. So thank you for participating. So let's open up for Q&A to Dr. Indigo. We have received a Q&A here, Dr. Indigo. The question is, did you use the pandemic to improve your quality of life?
I would have to say yes. Initially, I was very nervous because for those of you who know me, I'm an international speaker. So I'm usually on stages. I don't do this. I didn't even know how to do webinars. It scared me to death. And so my children who are young and they're more of a, what do you call it when they're into technology? They showed me how to do it. So living in the home together, we worked together, we did webinars together, and that created this bond. So yes, it improved my personal life because I have a relationship that I would not have had with my sons because they would have been gone and everything else. I really do believe, I just got to tell you, this has just been an incredible year. 2020 has really allowed us to step back. And if you used it to your advantage, it allowed you to see who you are, who your kids are, who your husband is. You know, it's just incredible.
Great, great, thanks. Now another question just came in. Do you agree that if we have a very strong religious belief and live our lives according to the teaching of our religion, we would, by virtue, be resilient?
Yes.
Okay, so that's an interesting question because when you factor in religion or beliefs, for instance, you know, when we look at the spectrum, remember it was 1 to 10, illness to wellness. Now, neutral, if we take Buddhism, which is not a religion, but Buddhism, Taoism, or Taoism, neutral is like, for me, what has really helped me through this is that I love the saying, be connected to all, but attached to nothing. So when we look at the yin and yang, neutral is having the balance of both the good and I don't like using good or bad, but being able to look at, you know, the negative and the positive of everything. So when we talk about religion, you all, sometimes religion can be so structured, it doesn't give you wiggle room to be human. Now, don't get me wrong, I grew up a devout Christian. And as a devout Christian, we would say, you know, you ask for forgiveness, and if you're living right, everything's going to go well. But sometimes life will trump some of the things that we've been taught in our religion. Meaning, sometimes difficulties come, and what we may believe is, not living right or something will cause us not to get help when we need help. Think about it like this, you all. Not all things that happen is because of circumstances. Mental health is sometimes grounded in biology, that you may have hormones that are out of whack. That has nothing to do with your relationship with your God. Or you may, let's talk about menopause. My sisters out there, how many of you remember going through menopause and sometimes you would cry for no reason? This has nothing to do with your religion or your relationship with God. So we got to be careful that we layer that on top of mental health, because it can sometimes become too heavy, that you don't get the help that you need, or you start blaming yourself or even God for how you're feeling, and you're just being beautifully human.
That's great. That's great. Thanks for that. Yeah, just another question just came in. What are your thoughts on the Malaysian mental health level at this current situation?
So I think we're making a lot of progress here. I've been speaking around Malaysia for mental health probably for about a year, where companies are starting to have me come in. But this is something that's interesting. When I first moved here, I signed a contract to live in a condo in Kuala Lumpur that literally said, Section 6, I'll never forget it, that said, if you or anyone in your household has a mental health illness, you are not allowed to stay here, nor could someone stay the night that has a mental health illness. I was so shocked. I made copies of it, sent it home, because my brother works in mental health as well. We couldn't believe it. So it's things like that that has to be taken into consideration. It's all well and good that we have these talks, but until there's laws that are changed, that's where we're going to have to really see some changes. For instance, if someone attempts suicide, that's a criminal offense. Now, let me make sure I got this right, because maybe it's me, but I tried to commit suicide, so now I got to go to jail? Are you going to give me any mental health healing while I'm in jail? No, I don't need to go to jail. I need to go to get help. So when we're talking about what's going on in Malaysia, there must be some serious consideration around the laws that govern how people deal with mental health. The stigma, I'll just give one more example. I was in a Grab, and it was a young lady. She had on her hijab, and we were talking, and she asked me, what did I do? And I told her what I did. And she started crying before even talking to me. She started crying and telling me about her mental health. And she couldn't talk to her family. She couldn't talk to her husband. And she was doing Grab so that she can get away. Not because she needed the money, she just needed to be alone, she said. And she drove me around KL we passed my place. And she just kept driving because she wanted to talk. So we have to, for those of you who are listening, you have to put yourself in a position that people feel it's okay to talk to you about their mental health.
Yeah, that's a great insight. Thank you very much for that. So, anyone have any more questions? Now, there are about almost near to 600 viewers at Facebook Live. So, I'm encouraging people who have questions, you can go to the Facebook Live and type in your questions. Right? If you want to ask Dr. Indigo. So with that, I will only have one more question for you, my personal question. Right? Is there a difference between how different countries deal with mental health based on your experience, especially for you coming from the America and have the culture difference in Malaysia?
Individual.
Yeah.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. Not only is there a difference between countries, there's a difference between families. You know, some families treat it one way and another family treats it another way. So yes, and that has to, I think because of internet, I think that's going to change. I'm happy that it's going to change because we're going to have people who will see this type of our Third Thursday talks, and they can take it back to work. They can take it to their family and talk about it. So I think the internet is going to bust the doors off of mental health. Now, here's my concern though. I'm starting to see more and more people go into saying they work in mental health, but they haven't gone to school for it. They haven't developed an understanding of it. For instance, there's a guy who coaches around mental wellness, but yet what's interesting is that he talks about happiness. And that's very, I'm just going to say, it's very dangerous because what does it say about people who are unhappy? The thing is, if we are going to be honest about it, we all have the full spectrum of emotions. No one is happy all the time, but if we make people feel like something's wrong with you, if you're not happy, something's wrong. Many of us at this very moment that I'm talking, some of you are feeling happy. Some of you are feeling like, On the most part, remember I said throughout the day, we are mostly in the neutral zone, you know, unless something happens. And it's okay. We have to become a society where we're okay with people having the full spectrum of emotions. And we're not. We're in a society where we want people to be happy. If my sister Pushpa right now was feeling sad, I'm going to say, oh, you'll be okay. It'll all work out because we don't want people to be sad. But here's the thing. Sometimes we got to move through the sadness, experience it. It's okay. If someone's parent dies, it's okay to let them feel the grief. We move people through grief so fast nowadays that people don't even have enough time to grieve a loss of a job, loss of a marriage, loss of friends, loss of, connecting. So we have to allow people to have the full spectrum. And I think that's what the internet is going to let us do, because we're going to be able to have true, candid conversations versus people going around saying, let's do the happy dance.
Great. Now, questions are pouring in. There's one very critical question that somebody asked. Now, this is quite serious, right? When mental health gets off the charts, for example, when someone is suicidal, is it possible to have them completely cured?
Oh, excellent question. So here's something to understand. There is no cure. There is no cure for any mental health challenge. There's no vaccine. Now, what there is healing. There's treatment. It's almost like saying, oh, where are my doctors? There are certain illnesses out there where there's no cure. Like diabetes, there's no cure, but there's treatment. Like when we think about diabetes, you got to eat right. You got to get your rest. You got to exercise. There are things you can do. And then there's medication if it's really full blown, right? Well, think of mental health the same way. There are certain diagnoses like suicidal, bipolar, schizophrenia. There are no cures, but there is treatment. There is healing. You can help people to heal.
Now, that's beautiful. At least there's some form of ways to overcome it. Right.
Yeah.
Now, another good question here. Is mental health and mental illness is the same?
Okay.
And
So,
then continue with that question is how to differentiate them.
okay. So for clarity, mental health is an umbrella, and under mental health is illness and wellness. So think about the spectrum. Whenever you're talking to someone and they'll say, wow, Dr. Dixon, you're mental. What does that mean? What we're trying to get people to understand is there is mental health. And on mental health, there is mental illness and there is mental wellness and a full range of emotions between it, a full range of diagnoses between it. For instance, if I was sitting here laughing uncontrollably, just completely happy and giddy, guess what? I'm not well because I'm probably manic, or I am, there's another word besides manic, when people become, just euphoric. So keep in mind that we all have mental health. And when I hear people who don't want to talk about mental health, but just mental wellness, what you're doing is isolating a huge part of our natural experience. It's almost like, and I keep picking on Pushpa because she's the person in my frame, but if Pushpa gets a cold, that does not mean she's sick forever. It just means she has a cold. So if we relate that to mental health, if I become sad, it just means I'm sad, but I will be happy again. The problem is when we're sad and people don't want us to be sad and we can't experience it, or when I'm sad and it becomes depression, when it stays for days, when it stays for weeks. And we'll actually, hopefully we'll do a show on this, Dr. Dixon, that the difference between sadness and depression. Sadness is when you can identify that I'm sad that I lost my job. I'm sad that my dog passed away. I'm sad that I can't reach out to my friends. That's sadness. You can identify it. Depression is when you can't figure it out. You have a level of sadness that doesn't even make sense to you. And that, some people can be depressed for a year. Can you believe that? It's horrible. So when we talk about mental health, you all, be very mindful that you have degrees and that there is illness, there is wellness, but we cannot ignore illness, that 5 and below, as if, if we don't talk about it, it doesn't exist, because it still exists and we're not honoring people who are in that space.
Great. Now, there are questions coming in. Unfortunately, our time is running out. It's already 9:30. So, Dr. Indigo, can you just repost, share your screen? How do they contact you because we could not answer all the questions at this moment, and I do not want them to miss any of the answer, right?
So this is how you can reach me. I highly recommend you go to my website because I have a whole page dedicated to mental wellness services. At www.drindigo.com, or you can email me at indigo@4-dperformance.com. And like I said, I am going to gift you all either one of these books. You just have to pay for shipping and handling, but these are complimentary. And a lot of things that you're answering, I actually talk about in the books.
Great, nice. A great person, Dr. Indigo. You're willing to share, you're willing to give. That's super wonderful. So anyone who have questions or urging you need to connect with Dr. Indigo, please email to her or drop her a WhatsApp. Now with that, I would like to invite our chairman. He's been sitting quietly behind the scene, right? Watching Dr. Indigo talk. I would like to invite the chairman of Mental Health Initiative, which is Dr. Raj, to come and thank our speaker, the first speaker for Mental Health Initiative. Pass on to you, Dr. Raj.
Thank you, Dr. Dixon. Good evening, everyone. On behalf of the District Action Group on Mental Health Initiatives, I would like to thank all of you for attending this talk. And I think there's a remarkable number. About 620 have attended the Facebook Live and about 110 on this group, chat group. Thank you very much. When I first met Indigo a couple of months ago, I never imagined that she'll be such a passionate and such an interesting and informative person. But believe me, she's a true Rotarian at heart. She hails from Rotary Club of Malawati, the District Governor Nominees Club. Okay, all right. Now, I think all of you will agree with me that she has delivered this topic so well. And the meaning of resilience and how to be resilient. Now, I don't think I have learned a lot today. And if you're wondering why I didn't ask questions, I know I can contact her later. She's in my committee. She's in this committee, District Action Group on Mental Health Initiatives. So Indigo, I think, Dr. Indigo, sorry, I think you have delivered the topic, and I'm very, very happy that everyone has stayed on. So many people have stayed on to complete the lecture. Thank you for contributing the books. And I think Dr. Indigo brought up an important point about suicides and entry into the jail. Now, this is one of the objectives of this District Action Group. We plan to decriminalize suicides in this country. It's a long shot. We're working on it, definitely. Now, this event would not have been possible if not for the webinar subcommittee headed by Dr. Dixon, President Dr. Dixon from Rotary Club of Port Klang. Thank you and his team. They have worked incessantly and for a couple of weeks now. We intend to continue this on a monthly basis, and it will be not the TED, the third Thursday, quite similar to the TED. You're going to get better. Whatever hiccups there were in this, I apologize, and we will definitely overcome those defects. So with this, let me invite you again. Thank you for attending. Please let me see you all every third Thursday. Thank you very much. Thank you, Dixon. Thank you, Dr.
Thank you, Dr. Raj.
Thank you, District Governor-elect Dato Bindi, who is the power source behind the whole District Action Group.
Yes, she's a wonderful lady. Now, the question I'm going to ask is, are we going into a storm? And what I learned from Dr. Indigo is, if we are going into a storm, what's next? 3 things that she mentioned. Go and seek help. Reach out to others and breathe. All right. Now, that will lead us to our next month webinar. Who do I call when I need help? Now, it's kind of interesting topic. There are many professions around in this society. Psychologists, psychiatrists, counselor, or therapists. Who do I call when I need help? Now, Dr. Indigo have given insight on the mental situation. So the next question I'm going to ask you is, who do I call when I need help? So don't miss our third Thursday of the month, which is January 21st, 2021. Same time, 8 p.m. And this round, I'm so glad that I'm not going to moderate the whole mental health talk. Yet, we have a superpower lady, which is today our speaker, Dr. Indigo, to moderate the entire sessions with 4 panelists. And they are professionals in psychologists, psychiatrists, counselors, and therapists. So from there, you will get to know who do I call when I need help. Okay. So stay tuned. Check our Facebook. Right now, we have about 100 of us over here. I will encourage you to go to your Facebook and type mental well-being MY. Right? The team behind the scene has spent almost a month and day and night storming, norming throughout and build this Facebook. And we would like you to go there and just do a small little action and click on it and say like it, so that we will inform you of our next event, right? And our next webinar, mental talks, and anything that we are ready to roll out for mental health initiative, right? So with that, I would like to thank you for your participation, right? And I would like to thank Dr. Raj, the chairman of Mental Health Initiative, who take on the entire action group. And nevertheless, our Datuk Bindi, who is passionate to do good for the society. And lastly, I would like to acknowledge Dr. Indigo, right, who is so passionate on what she's doing, and she would like to reach out for more. If you need any advice or burning question, please do drop her a call or drop her a WhatsApp or an email and get your question asked. Remember, reach out and get help. Thank you very much. Do stay back for fellowship if you like. At this moment, I would like to close off our first mental health initiative, mental health talk. Thank you.